You have never seen a Ferrari at a car dealership. You cannot walk into a showroom, point at a model on the floor, and drive it home that afternoon. You cannot even order one without being on a list, without being known to the company, without having proved yourself as a buyer worthy of the privilege of giving Ferrari your money. The most desired car company in the world does not want your business until it decides you deserve it. It sells fewer than 14,000 cars per year to the entire planet. Toyota sells that many vehicles every 4 hours, and yet Ferrari is worth more per car sold, more per employee, more per square foot of factory floor than almost any manufacturer on Earth. Its operating margin regularly exceeds 25%. Its brand value is measured in the tens of billions. A used Ferrari from 1962 sold at auction in 2013 for $38 million. Not a spaceship, not a painting, a car. A machine built in Maranello, a small town in the Emilia-Romagna region of northern Italy, population 17,000, that most people outside Italy cannot find on a map. This is the story of how a bad-tempered, difficult, brilliant, obsessive man named Enzo Ferrari built a company that produces fewer cars than a medium-sized factory in Ohio, and somehow became the most recognized automotive brand in the history of transportation. We are going to trace it from a broken family in Modena in 1898 to a publicly traded corporation with a market capitalization larger than Ford and General Motors combined. And it begins not with speed, not with racing, not with engineering. It begins with 2 funerals. Enzo Ferrari is born on February 18, 1898 in Modena, Italy. His father, Alfredo, runs a small metalworking business. The family is not wealthy, but they are comfortable. And Alfredo takes young Enzo to his first automobile race in 1908 at the Circuit di Bologna. Enzo is 10 years old. He watches cars he has never seen anything like move at speeds that seem impossible. He decides in that moment, with the certainty only a 10-year-old can have about something they do not fully understand, that he will be involved in racing. 4 years later, his father Alfredo dies of pneumonia. In 1916, his brother Dino dies of illness contracted during military service. Enzo Ferrari is 18 years old, and the 2 men who anchored his life are gone within 4 years of each other. He is conscripted into the Italian army, serves as a farrier shoeing mules for an artillery unit, contracts pleurisy, nearly dies, and is discharged in 1918 with the war still running. He arrives in Turin looking for work in the automobile industry, applies to Fiat, and is rejected. He finds work at a small firm preparing used military vehicles for civilian sale. He drives racing cars on weekends for whatever teams will have him. He is not the fastest driver in Italy. He is not even close. But he notices things other drivers do not notice. He is interested in why a car goes fast, not just in the experience of going fast. In 1920, Enzo Ferrari joins Alfa Romeo as a test driver and racing team representative. For the next 19 years, he will work within the orbit of Alfa Romeo. He will become the manager of its racing division. He will hire drivers, organize logistics, negotiate with suppliers, and develop a reputation as someone who sees around corners in the way that only people who have survived enough loss early enough can. He has no engineering degree. He has no formal technical education. What he has is an obsession so complete it crowds out nearly everything else. His marriage to Laura Garello in 1923 will produce 1 legitimate son, Dino, who dies at 24 from a degenerative illness, and 1 illegitimate son, Piero, whose existence Enzo does not publicly acknowledge until after Laura's death. Ferrari the man is not a sympathetic figure in the conventional sense. He is demanding, manipulative, secretive, prone to rage, and constitutionally incapable of prioritizing anything above racing. What he builds from this material. There is no separation between the pathology and the achievement. They are the same thing. If you are still watching, leave a comment below with just the word Maranello. I want to see how many of you are with me this far into the story of the most obsessive man who ever built a car company. Now keep watching, because what happens next is the moment Ferrari stops being a man and starts being an institution. In 1929, Ferrari found Scuderia Ferrari, which translates literally to Ferrari stable, as a racing team that competes using Alfa Romeo cars. The Scuderia operates out of Modena, recruits drivers, and races across Europe. Ferrari is not building cars. He is organizing the racing of other people's cars. But the Scuderia develops a reputation. It wins. It attracts talented drivers, including Tazio Nuvolari, widely considered one of the greatest racing drivers who ever lived, a man so aggressive and precise behind the wheel that he wins races in cars that have no right to win them. The Scuderia also attracts the attention of two wealthy Italian aristocrats who become early financial backers, Francesco Canato and Mario Tadini. Their support keeps the operation alive in years when prize money alone would not. In 1933, Alfa Romeo, under severe financial pressure during the global depression, withdraws its factory racing team and hands official support to Scuderia Ferrari. Enzo Ferrari is now effectively running Alfa Romeo's competition program from his own organization in Modena. He hires engineers. He modifies cars. He pushes the relationship as far as it will go. In 1937, Alfa Romeo reclaims direct control of its racing program and absorbs the Scuderia back into the factory structure, making Ferrari the director of the official Alfa Corse racing division. He lasts 2 years. In 1939, he resigns following a conflict with the Spanish engineer Wilfredo Ricard, whom Ferrari despises on personal and professional grounds. Ferrari is required by his separation agreement to not build racing cars or use the Ferrari name in connection with motorsport for 4 years. He is 41 years old, unemployed by his own choice, and legally prohibited from doing the one thing he has spent his entire adult life doing. He founds a machine tool company in Modena to stay solvent. He calls it Auto Avio Costruzioni, Automobile Aeronautical Construction, a name deliberately vague enough to obscure its purpose. Under this cover, he begins building 2 racing cars for private customers for the 1940 Mille Miglia, the famous 1,000-mile road race across Italy. The agreement with Alfa Romeo says he cannot call them Ferraris. He calls them the 815, after their 8 cylinders and 1,500cc displacement. He is already cheating. The war ends the racing program. German and Allied forces alternately occupy and bomb northern Italy. Ferrari moves his machine tool operation to Maranello, 18 kilometers south of Modena, in 1943. The Maranello factory is bombed twice by Allied aircraft in 1944 and 1945. Enzo Ferrari rebuilds it both times. After the war, with the 4-year restriction from his Alfa Romeo agreement expired, he incorporates a new company on September 12, 1947, Ferrari S.p.A. The name is his own. The location is Maranello. The product will be racing cars. The first car to carry the Ferrari name officially is the 125S, powered by a 1.5-liter V12 engine designed by Gioacchino Colombo, a brilliant engineer who had worked at Alfa Romeo. The 125S makes its racing debut on May 11, 1947, at the Piacenza circuit. It breaks down. Ferrari does not celebrate a successful debut. He notes what failed and orders it fixed. The 125S wins its next race at the Rome Grand Prix 11 days later. The pattern is established in the first 11 days. The car fails. Ferrari orders it fixed. The car wins. That pattern will repeat for the next 40 years. The prancing horse on the Ferrari badge has a story that most people who wear it on their clothing have never heard, and the story is not about horses. On June 17, 1923, Enzo Ferrari wins the Savio circuit race in Ravenna. After the race, he is introduced to the Countess Paolina Baracca, mother of Francesco Baracca, the most celebrated Italian fighter ace of the First World War, with 34 aerial victories before his death in combat in 1918. Baracca's personal symbol, painted on the fuselage of his aircraft, was a black prancing horse on a white background. The Countess asks Ferrari to put her son's symbol on his cars. She believes it will bring him luck. Ferrari accepts. He changes the background from white to yellow, the color of Modena. The prancing horse has been on every Ferrari since. The Ace's horse, a dead pilot's symbol, a grieving mother's gift, carried forward by a man who had buried his own father and brother before he was 20. Ferrari understands better than most what it means to carry the dead forward into whatever comes next. What Ferrari builds in Maranello in the late 1940s and through the 1950s is not a car company in the conventional sense. It is a racing operation that sells road cars to finance itself. The road cars are almost an afterthought. They are expensive, they are beautiful, they are mechanically extraordinary. But Ferrari's attention is on the racing program. He needs prize money. He needs the performance data that comes from racing. He needs the publicity. The road cars provide the cash that underwrites the racing. This inversion of the normal business model, making road cars to fund racing instead of using racing to promote road cars, defines Ferrari's economics for decades and creates its exclusivity almost by accident. Ferrari cannot build very many road cars because he does not have the capital to scale production. The scarcity that makes Ferraris desirable is initially a function of poverty, not strategy. He is not manufacturing scarcity to create desire. He is manufacturing as many cars as his money allows, and it happens to not be very many. The genius comes later, when Ferrari realizes that the scarcity itself is the product, that the inaccessibility is not a limitation, but the core of the brand's power, and begins managing it deliberately. By then, the pattern is already set so deeply into the company's identity that maintaining it feels natural, because it is. It grew from necessity and matured into doctrine. The 1950s are Ferrari's first golden decade. The Formula One World Championship begins in 1950. Ferrari enters as a constructor. Alberto Ascari wins the Drivers' Championship in 1952 and 1953 driving for Ferrari. Juan Manuel Fangio, the greatest Formula One driver of the 1950s and by many measures the greatest of any era, drives for Ferrari in 1956 and wins his fourth world championship in a Ferrari. Mike Hawthorne wins the Drivers' Championship for Ferrari in 1958. At Le Mans, the 24-hour endurance race in France that becomes the other measure of automotive greatness, Ferrari wins in 1949, 1954, 1958, and begins the streak of dominance that will accumulate 14 overall victories over the following decades. Ferrari wins races the way other companies make quarterly earnings reports, as a regular expected function of operations, with failure treated as an anomaly requiring explanation. Inside the factory, Ferrari rules through fear and a kind of theatrical cruelty. He pits drivers against each other psychologically, tells one that another has said something unflattering, manufactures competition in the belief that insecurity makes drivers faster. He is not entirely wrong. His drivers are extraordinarily fast, and several of them die. Luigi Musso dies at the 1958 French Grand Prix. Peter Collins dies at the 1958 German Grand Prix. They are driving Ferraris. Ferrari grieves privately, publicly continues, and never fully separates the deaths from the program. Racing people die. The racing continues. This is understood by everyone who enters the orbit of the Maranello factory. Understood and accepted, which says something about what racing meant to the people who pursued it in this era that is almost impossible to convey to anyone who did not live it. Now pause for a second. What you are watching is not just the story of a car company. This is a story about what obsession builds when it is organized and directed and never softened. Write in the comments what year you think Ferrari reached its peak, because the answer is going to surprise most of you. And stay watching, because the deal that almost destroyed Ferrari is coming up next. In 1963, Ford Motor Company opens negotiations to buy Ferrari. The American company, under Henry Ford II, wants to compete at Le Mans, the race that defines endurance racing prestige, and has concluded that the fastest path to winning it is to buy the company that already wins it. Negotiations advance to the point of a formal agreement. Numbers are agreed upon. The deal is structured. And then Enzo Ferrari reads the fine print. The agreement gives Ford final authority over Ferrari's racing budget and racing program decisions. Enzo Ferrari closes the meeting, returns the papers unsigned, and tells the Ford representatives that he will not sell. Not for any number they can write. The racing program is not a division of Ferrari SPA. The racing program is Ferrari. Selling control of the racing program is not selling part of the company. It is selling him. He does not sell. Ford responds by doing what American industrial capital does when it cannot buy something. It builds a competitor from scratch. The Ford GT40, developed specifically to beat Ferrari at Le Mans, wins the race in 1966, 1967, 1968, and 1969, the first 2 years with Ferrari cars placed behind it. It is a corporate humiliation delivered with $100 million and 4 consecutive victories. Ferrari responds the way he always responds. He develops better cars and returns to winning. But the Ford episode reveals something about Ferrari that matters for everything that follows. Enzo Ferrari will not be bought. He will not subordinate the racing program to commercial logic. He will not rationalize the obsession. This intractability is not a personality defect that he overcomes to build a great company. The intractability is the company. Remove it, and nothing recognizable remains. The near sale to Ford damages Ferrari financially. In 1969, with the company genuinely struggling, Enzo Ferrari negotiates a different deal. Fiat acquires 50% of Ferrari SPA for a reported sum of around 1 billion lire, approximately $16 million at the exchange rates of the time. The agreement is constructed to preserve Enzo's autonomy over the racing program during his lifetime. Fiat gets half the road car company. Ferrari keeps the racing. It is not the same as the Ford deal. Fiat is Italian. Fiat is not trying to rationalize him. Fiat is trying to keep the most famous Italian brand in the world from collapsing for lack of working capital. And the infusion works. Fiat's money and industrial infrastructure allow Ferrari to professionalize operations at the Maranello factory in ways that the racing budget could never have funded. The road car program expands. Production increases, slowly, carefully, in ways that expand revenue without diluting the brand's exclusivity. The 308 GTB of 1975 becomes Ferrari's best-selling model to that point. The Testarossa of 1984 becomes the most recognizable automotive shape of the decade, partially because a television program called Miami Vice places it in the hands of its lead characters and broadcasts that image to 14 million American viewers every week for 5 years. Ferrari does not pay for this. It does not need to. The car is the advertisement. It has always been the car. Enzo Ferrari dies on August 14, 1988, at the age of 90. He has spent 70 years inside the racing world, 41 of them building and running the company that bears his name. He does not die in a hospital. He dies in Maranello, where he has lived for most of his adult life, within walking distance of the factory. He has outlived his legitimate son, his wife, most of his early drivers, and virtually everyone who was present at the beginning. He has won 9 Formula One Constructors' Championships, 7 Drivers' Championships, and more major endurance races than any other manufacturer in history. He has built approximately 57,000 road cars over 4 decades. He has never driven any of them on a public road for pleasure. He considers road cars instrumentally, as the means by which the racing program is funded. The thing itself, the road car as an object of desire, as an experience, as a piece of sculpture that happens to move at 200 miles per hour. That is what other people feel about Ferraris. Enzo himself is interested only in whether the car can go faster. That is perhaps the strangest fact about the most desired car company ever built. Its founder did not care about the desire. He cared only about the speed. After Enzo's death, Fiat acquires the remaining equity in Ferrari SPA, eventually building its stake to 90%. The company continues to race in Formula One, winning Constructors' Championships in 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, and 2004, 6 titles in 6 years, a run of dominance powered by the partnership between technical director Ross Brawn, chief designer Rory Byrne, and the driver Michael Schumacher, who wins 5 consecutive Drivers' Championships from 2000 to 2004, all with Ferrari. It is the most sustained period of Formula One dominance in the sport's history. Ferrari wins in a different era than Enzo knew, an era of telemetry and computational fluid dynamics and sponsor logos and team principals who have business degrees. But it wins the same way it always won, by being faster. In 2015, Ferrari separates from Fiat's successor company, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, and lists on the New York Stock Exchange. The IPO values the company at approximately $9 billion. Within 8 years, the market capitalization exceeds $50 billion. The stock is one of the best-performing automotive equities of the decade. Wall Street analysts who have covered aerospace and defense companies and pharmaceutical manufacturers discover that the luxury automotive sector, when operated by a company that sells genuine scarcity and genuine performance, produces margins and return on equity that industrial manufacturing has no business generating. Ferrari's operating margin in 2023 is approximately 27%. For context, Apple, the most profitable technology company in history, operates at around 30%. Ferrari is a small car factory in a small Italian town producing margins comparable to the world's most profitable technology company. The mechanism is not mystery. Ferrari sells fewer than 14,000 cars per year at an average selling price of approximately 350,000 euros. It does not discount. It does not have clearance events. It does not have a certified pre-owned program aimed at drawing in buyers who cannot afford the new car. It has a waiting list. It has a clientele program. It has an allocation system that rewards loyal customers with access to limited models. The most exclusive Ferraris, the Icona series, the one-off SP cars built to individual customer specifications, are not listed with prices at all. If you are asking what they cost, you are not on the list. The list is the product. The waiting is the experience. The denial of access is the access. The factory in Maranello today employs approximately 400-500 people in a town of 17,000. The factory is not a secret. It runs tours. It has a museum on site, the Museo Ferrari, which draws hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. The cars that fill it span 75 years of production. The 125S with its tiny V12, the 250 GTO that is now the most valuable production car ever made, the Testarossa, the F40, the Enzo named for its founder, the LaFerrari hybrid hypercar that produces over 950 horsepower from a combustion engine and electric motor combined. The museum is not a memorial. Ferrari is still racing. Ferrari is still producing approximately one new model every 2 to 3 years. Ferrari is investing in electrification, not because the market demands it, which it does, but because the aerodynamic and performance advantages of electric motors integrated into a combustion platform are real and measurable, and Enzo would have been interested in them for exactly that reason and no other. The 250 GTO deserves its own 30 seconds of your attention, because the story of that car tells you everything about what Ferrari becomes. Between 1962 and 1964, Ferrari builds 36 examples of the 250 GTO, a racing car homologated for GT competition with a 3.0-liter V12 producing approximately 300 horsepower. It wins its class at Le Mans. It wins the GT World Championship in 1962, 1963, and 1964. Ferrari builds 36 of them. Not 300, not 3,600, 36. Today, when one changes hands between collectors, which happens rarely and always privately, the price is in the range of $50 to $70 million. A 1963 example sold at private sale in 2018 for a reported $70 million, the highest price ever paid for any motor vehicle at that time. 36 cars, each worth the GDP of a small island. Ferrari did not plan this. Ferrari built 36 cars because 36 cars was what the competition rules required and what the factory could manage. The scarcity was operational, not strategic. The consequence, 6 decades later, is that anyone who owns one of those 36 cars owns something more valuable than most people will accumulate across an entire career of work. And still, the car cannot be bought. It can only be inherited or acquired from someone willing to part with it, which almost none of them ever are. Ferrari is the answer to a question that business schools struggle to formulate cleanly. What happens when an obsessive founder refuses to compromise the obsession, and the obsession turns out to be correct? The conventional answer is that the company either fails or gets acquired and rationalized. Ferrari almost failed, multiple times. It got half acquired by Fiat and lived. It was never rationalized. The obsession was never removed. What was built is a company that generates more desire per unit produced than any other manufacturer in any category in the world. Not the most desire in aggregate, the desire in total that belongs to mass market brands with billions of customers. The most desire per unit. The most desire per car, per dollar of revenue, per square foot of factory. The concentration of desire in each individual object is unlike anything else that moves on four wheels. A new buyer who purchases his first Ferrari in 2024 is buying into a heritage that includes Ascari and Fangio and Schumacher, the prancing horse that flew on Baraka's fighter, the Le Mans victories, the refusal to sell to Ford, the 40 years of Enzo and Maranello refusing to leave. He is buying the continuity of an obsession across 75 years and the knowledge that the car in his garage is the direct descendant of the car that did what Ferrari's car always does: go faster. That is the product. That is what is worth 350,000 euros and a place on the waiting list. Not the carbon fiber. Not the V8 or V12. The unbroken line from a 10-year-old boy watching cars race at Bologna in 1908 to the machine in your garage right now. The boy who lost his father and his brother before he was 20, who got rejected by Fiat and nearly died of pleurisy in an army field hospital, who built a racing team with other people's cars and then built his own cars and then built the most desired car company on earth. One race at a time, one car at a time, never softening the obsession, never rationalizing the desire, never deciding that the racing program was less important than the balance sheet. The man never drove a Ferrari on a public road for pleasure. He never needed to. He had already been to the place the car was trying to go. He had been there at 10 years old in Bologna in 1908, and everything that came after was just the work of getting back there. Leave a comment with the first Ferrari model you ever remember seeing, not the first one you owned, the first one you saw. I want to know which car brought you to this story. And if this is the kind of history that makes you feel something, subscribe, because we have more. A lot more.